As a lot of you may know, the Toronto Blue Jays have acquired Mr. Reliable, Chris Bassitt, in free agency. And on this episode of Jays Digest, we'll bring you the real reason why they brought in the former All Star. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And we got a lot to get into today, but first I want to thank you all for the support that we've been getting. It's been unreal. We've been working super hard for you guys to get that content out there. Been live streaming all these videos, and we love doing it, but we'd love if you guys hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton.
Yeah, it would. Road to 5K before Christmas, but let's just get right into the video. Obviously, the major news dropped yesterday. We had a live stream about it. Right-hander Chris Bassitt and the Toronto Blue Jays are in agreement on a 3-year, $63 million contract, pending physical. But the deal's basically done, and we think we found a real reason why the Jays did it, and there was some stuff on Twitter about it as well. Kind of like an alternative reason, besides obviously the fact that Chris Bassitt is a phenomenal pitcher. But before we get into that, Peter, what are your initial thoughts on the Chris Bassitt signing?
Well, in a short way, this is the perfect move for the Toronto Blue Jays. Something had to be done. They were lacking a little bit on the free agent market. They didn't really do much. They were kind of waiting around. And pieces were getting picked up by other teams, but this was the perfect signing. I mean, even though Ross Stripling is now with the San Francisco Giants, this is a perfect replacement, a more reliable replacement. And Chris Bassitt, I mean, the guy just eats innings, and we're not quite a World Series contender yet, but we're getting there piece by piece. There's still some holes that need to be filled in the roster, but this is a great start to the offseason, and I expect a lot more to come.
Yeah, it was definitely a step in the right direction, and like you said, more to come for sure. And let's just get into what we saw on Twitter and what is a very interesting point. And Peter obviously sent you this last night, but it starts with this. So this is the main thought here. This is from Chris Black. He does a lot of stuff like this. He said, a catcher thought. We know Kirk is Manoah's catcher. We also know Gosman, who relies on the low strike for the split and fastball, was much better than Kirk behind the plate. Now they add a sinker baller in Chris Bassitt, and Danny Jansen has struggled receiving low strikes for a few years. Is this a prelude to the team turning over catching duties to Kirk and Moreno? Pure speculation, but just thought it was interesting. And you can see here, he basically says Bassitt brings the best sinker the Jays have had since Sanchez and Stroman. And that was obviously his hypothesis about it, that Jansen might be on the way out because his framing is quite poor, especially with the low pitch. Bringing in another sinker baller. What are your thoughts on that, and maybe a reason behind why the Jays brought in Bassitt?
Well, I don't know how much I read I don't know how much I read into that, and I'll just say it super quickly. Danny Jansen, I mean, he's a great game caller. I do think his framing is pretty solid. I don't know the advanced metrics, but I see him receive pitches, and it looks effortless back there. Kirk is also really good at that. Moreno remains to be seen. We didn't see too much of him in 2022, but it's important in the AL East to keep the ball on the ground. There's a lot of fly ball hitters, a lot of home run hitters, and that's why it's important to have a sinker baller on your team, a guy that keeps the ball in the ballpark, because the ball flies in the AL East, and those ballparks, they are they're made for home run hitters. So a guy like Bassitt fits in perfectly. I know he doesn't throw hard, but this is it could be a sign that the Jays are turning over the duties to Moreno and Jansen, to Moreno and Kirk. Sorry, but I don't know how much I read into it, but it's definitely interesting to see a thread like that. A lot of work went into it by Chris Black. Shout out to him.
Yeah, a lot. And he does these a lot on Twitter, but I agree with you. I don't know how much. I don't think the signing was a sign that Jansen is on the way out. I think if he is on the way out, which a lot of us do believe, it would have been happening before the signing. However, it is good that we have a phenomenal framing catcher in Kirk, specifically with the low pitches. He's familiar with catching Gosman, and now bringing in Bassitt, who also has a nasty splitter. And they had a little interaction on Twitter that I don't have a screenshot for, but they're excited to play with each other and teach each other pitches. So having a catcher like Kirk may have, and probably did, factor somewhat into the decision of getting Chris Bassitt. And if not factor, then definitely enhance the idea to do it, because framing is still very important until we get robot, if we get robot umpires. So right now, having a catcher like Kirk who's so good at framing, it doesn't seem like he's going to be the one traded, is really important, even if it isn't a direct signal that Danny Jansen might be heading away.
Yeah, it's not even about like the strike calls at times. It's about giving your pitcher confidence. And
Yeah.
I remember when I would pitch in baseball, like I'd loved a catcher that can really frame the ball, and you feel like you're throwing harder if there's a catcher over there and he's making your pitches look a lot better and he's really sticking them on the corner. It makes you more confident as a pitcher. But one thing I will say about Danny Jansen is although his metrics might not be the best on the low pitch, he really helped Jose Barrios out last season. We know Barrios struggled, but as at least from the eye test as a fan, I was able to gather that Jose Barrios was much better with Danny Jansen behind the plate, and he struggled when Kirk caught him, and he struggled when Gabby Moreno caught him. So I don't know how much you could look into that. I think it's going to be an adjustment for everybody. But bottom line, Chris Bassitt was a great move and a great pickup for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. You know, Jansen's a very good catcher, fairly good defensive catcher. He just obviously, apparently, according to the advanced metric, has a bit poorer with low framing pitches. But it was speculation from him and very interesting. And what I'll do quickly now, we have a couple more screenshots, but I'll just show you guys, if you're not familiar with Chris Bassitt, we'll show you a little 10-second clip here in the background of his pitches, and specifically one that's coming up here of his sinker. He's just nasty. This pitch coming up right now, look at the way look at the swing. The swing just
look
has
at that swing.
Effortless delivery. I'll throw it one more time for you guys, and the hitter's just swing. And you know, he's 33. He doesn't rely on velocity, which is very key. And he looks great. I've been doing a lot of, I've been watching a lot of his clips, and even, reporters and players and fans of other teams are going on Twitter and saying how good he was with the Mets, with Oakland. Obviously, he was with Oakland for a while. My brother's a Mets fan. He said he's phenomenal. He's just steady. That's the word you use for Chris Bassitt, is steady. And having someone like him is crazy, and that sinker it's unbelievable.
That's filthy. That swing. I mean, I don't know who the batter was. I couldn't exactly see, but he had no clue up there. He had no chance. I mean, that's 91 miles an hour. Now, that's fast for us average Joes that don't play in the major leagues, but that's a below average fastball in the majors. And he made him look silly. And I'll tell you why. Because that ball started about 12 inches off the plate and just broke and hit the outside corner. So the batter, out of the hand, he's like, there's no way this is going to be a strike. And then it just paints the outside corner. That's exactly what Bassitt does. And you hear the cliche term all the time, he's a pitcher, he's not a thrower. And it's true. Bassitt is a pitcher. Chris Bassitt is like a finesse guy through and through. He doesn't rely on his velocity. So that's why, although he's going to turn 34 by opening day, I'm not worried because his contract is going to age beautifully and he's going to be pitching well into his late 30s. I'm 100% sure about it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. He's not a velocity guy. He never has relied on velocity. Kind of like, similar to Ross Stripling, and kind of like Mark Burley a little bit. They didn't really pitch the same way, right, but they both rely on their command, rely on their movement rather than their velocity. And we'll pop up his Baseball Savant page here in case you're, unfamiliar with him a bit more. 93 average mile per hour fastball, 89 cutter, has a 79 mile per hour slider, curve on the left, and changeup as well. And you can look at the metrics here, and exactly what you said. He's not going to blow you away with chase rate. He's not going to blow you away with velocity. But what he will do is, if he gets hit, he limits hard hit balls. He limits velocity. He limits barrel rate, and he strikes out at an average clip. And again, this is just perfect for aging. And I'm just over the moon about the contract. And I don't know if they could have done any better with, especially with what they had left. And I guess the only other realistic, better option would have been Justin Verlander. But before he obviously signed. But I'd rather Bassitt than Andrew Heaney, just strictly off his, Bassitt's record over the past few years.
Well, the faster you throw, the faster it goes out. So that's why you see a lot of guys that throw 95 plus give up a lot of home runs, like Jose Barrios, Garrett Cole. They throw hard, but they give up a lot of home runs. And Bassitt, although he doesn't throw hard, it just looks like his ball that he throws is heavy. Like it's a heavy sinker,
It's great.
Like it's basically, if I were to compare it, I don't know, as a hitter, it's like trying to hit in below zero weather, or like when you play in fall ball, like you hit a ball off the hands and it feels like your fingers are just gonna fall off. That's the type of pitcher that Bassitt is, and I think he's gonna bring that same kind of energy to Toronto come opening day.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch. We have Gausman now. Obviously, Gausman throws a lot of velocity, but he has a nasty splitter. We have, Manoah, nasty everything. But it's just, we have a lot. We're finally developing a rotation. And obviously, Ross Stripling signed today for, I believe, 2 years, $25 million. So 12 and a half a year with an option after the first year. Now, a lot of Jays fans were asking, why didn't we match that? I honestly, truly believe it was more so Ross Stripling wanting to go with the Giants. I can't see a world where the Jays don't offer him that. Or maybe maybe they're reliant on Yusei Kikuchi and giving him a chance. I don't know if you have any quick thoughts on Stripling here on that contract that released.
Well, I just think the rotation's too right-handed heavy right now. You got your guy. You got your Ross Stripling replacement, which is Chris Bassitt, and you don't know. I was pretty certain that Ross Stripling would be able to replicate what he did in 2022 this season, but Chris Bassitt has a longer track record, and he's a true innings eater, and he's proven it over the course of his career. Has never had an ERA above 4 since 2016. So this is a perfect Ross Stripling replacement right now, and I really think they're reserving that number 5 spot for either Yusei Kikuchi or another lefty out on the open market. I think that's what they're trying to go for, and it was mutual to not bring Ross Stripling back.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. And, at the end of the day, he signed for 12 and a half AAV, and the player option was 19, or the qualifying offer was
Right.
19. So I think it was a good decision by the Blue Jays not to do that. And like you said, Ross Stripling very rarely pitches more than 5 innings, and Bassett is an innings eater. So I don't know. I'm very happy with the signing. And the real reason that we discussed today is let us know about it in the comment section below, because it's very interesting. And nonetheless, even if that wasn't the direct reason, having Kirk catching him will be phenomenal, assuming he doesn't get traded opening day. But I think that'll wrap it up for this video. Support's been unbelievable. We're on the road to 5K, and lots of live streams coming soon. So stay tuned to that in the community tab, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks.